Are you looking to build out something on HubSpot, but the default records like contacts, companies, deals, and tickets just aren't a good fit? Well, that's where custom objects come in. HubSpot custom objects lets you build basically any object that you like pretty easily within the UI, and you can start building new data points around that object. You can use it in the workflows tool, the list tool, you can use it in the views, you can associate them with other objects and track them in a pipeline view similar to deals. So, what you're going to need to be able to use the custom objects in HubSpot, you need to have access to an enterprise hub. That could be the marketing hub, the service hub, the sales hub. Any of those enterprise level hubs will provide you access to using and creating new custom objects in your portal. You're also going to need to be a super admin. Only super admins can create custom objects in HubSpot portals, so you'll need to make sure that you have that elevated access. Custom objects are a way for users to store additional information about contacts, companies, deals, tickets that is not available in the out-of-box standard HubSpot objects. They allow you to customize your HubSpot CRM to your use case. Some businesses require relationships between objects that aren't the standard CRM objects that HubSpot offers. So you can create your own custom object, create properties, manage pipelines, and customize the associations between those custom objects similarly to how you can with default objects. For example, if you're an insurance industry, you might be building a custom object for policies. If you are a moving company, you might build out a custom object for moves or movers. If you're a real estate company, you might build a custom object for your properties. These custom objects may be associated to contacts. For example, in the case that you're building within the insurance industry space and you're building out custom objects for policies, you might be associating these policies with contacts for personal lines, like an auto policy or a home policy. For the policies might also be associated to companies for commercial purposes, for trucking insurance or business insurance. In this video, we're going to dive in on how you can create custom objects directly in your HubSpot portal, and we'll be going over how you can create them, how you can create properties for your custom objects, how you can create associations, how you can create a pipeline, and how you can use this in other parts of HubSpot, such as the workflows and other tools around HubSpot. So let's dive in and take a peek how it looks in HubSpot. Okay, so once you're in HubSpot, you'll need to go to the settings page. You can do this by clicking on the gear icon at the top right. Again, you're going to need super admin access. Without super admin access, you won't be able to create the custom object. Once you're in the settings page, you can go down under data management into objects. You'll see here, these are some of the default standard objects in HubSpot. We have contacts, companies, deals, tickets. And since HubSpot has began, they have added a lot of new objects as well. Some are used in different parts of the platform. And then right here at the bottom, you'll see custom objects. So we can go ahead and click on custom objects. Now, it will start off with this button here that says create custom object. You'll want to go ahead and click that. And this is where we're going to go through a very important part of the process, which is defining what this object is, the singular, plural name for that object, the primary display property, which is used in the pipeline view and the list view, the secondary display property, which is also used in those views. So keep in mind, I'm going to just show you guys real quick, within HubSpot, if you go into your deals, you'll see that there's fields up here. So when HubSpot created these objects way back in the day, they've defined primary and secondary fields. That's kind of part of their data structure for their objects. You need to have a primary and secondary field, and those will display up here, right? So make sure you don't just put in a random property, because those will be in there. You can edit them, but it requires using the API. It's a little bit more difficult, and so what I would recommend is just make sure you're creating the primary and secondary properties that are for that specific object. So for example, we're going to go back through here, we're going to go to custom objects and create the custom object. In this case, for an example here, we're going to create policies. If you're an insurance business, maybe an insurance agency, and you have a book of business and you'd like to start using HubSpot, maybe you have an AMS system and you're looking to use HubSpot more and connect your policies to run automated workflows based on maybe expiration dates and other situations, we're going to go ahead and create that example here. So the singular word here that we need to put in is policy, and the plural will be policies. Now keep in mind here, it shows us the internal name. This is important. This will be used maybe if you're using the API. This will be the internal definition or the internal name for this object. So the object description here, we'll just go ahead and say insurance policies. That's it. And then the primary display property. So again, have a think about what your primary display property will be. In this case, for policies, every policy has a policy number, so we're going to go ahead and select policy number. Now, very important thing here that it's often overlooked is the property type. Numbers, keep in mind, numbers can only take in numbers. You can sort based on like greater than or less than. And so there's other options there. So keep in mind when you're choosing the property type, I'm going to choose single line text, and I will also require unique values for this property because every policy should have a unique policy number. And the property type is going to be single line text because there might be dashes and other characters in there. The secondary display property here, what we are going to do for the secondary display property will be a company name. We can name it insurance company name. So oftentimes an independent insurance agency will be working with a list of insurance companies, and they'll be providing policies for those companies. And here you might have your AAA, your Progressive, your Allstate, and list of a bunch of other insurance providers, insurance companies that you are working with. So this will be the secondary property here. If you have any other properties that you'd like to add, you can go ahead and add other secondary display properties. That is the limit. Currently you can only create 2. And then we'll go ahead and create this object. Nice. So once your object is created, you'll be presented with a page very similar to how you will see it on contacts when you navigate to contacts, but instead it'll be specific to this custom object for policies. So what we'll go ahead and start with is the basics, right? Maybe when you first started HubSpot, you're creating data points, you're creating properties on contacts, on deals, on companies, and that's the same thing that we need to do here. So for example, we'll go ahead and click Manage Policy Properties. You'll see HubSpot packs custom objects with some default properties like the object create date, an owner field. These fields won't be editable, and again, these are just default fields. But if you want to create a new property, which is likely what you're going to need to do, you're going to click on Create Property here. And so for this example, what we're going to do is create a property called Product Type. and this will be in the policy information, and this will be the product listed on this insurance policy. Then we'll go ahead and click next, and we'll do a drop down for now, and we'll do auto, we'll do home, maybe we'll do life insurance, and let's see, maybe flood insurance is another popular one. We'll go ahead and click next here and create. So again, you can go through here, create as many properties as you need to store the relevant data for this custom object. So the next step here is going back to the custom objects page, and let's work through the associations. So the associations are critical. Without associating a policy to another object, context is lost. We don't know exactly who this policy belongs to, who is the primary insured, the first named insured on that policy, and so we need to associate it with a contact. You might also have a deal that is being closed won, and at that point when it's being closed won is when the policy object gets created, and so you will need to associate it to a deal. If you are working with commercial, B2B purposes, so you'll need to associate it with a company there. So we'll go ahead and add some associations here. We can create new association, and we're going to select contacts first, create. So once you've created one, you can go through and enable others up here, and we'll go ahead and do that for companies too. And then we'll also go ahead and do that for deals. And you know what, because for servicing sake, there might be an issue, a renewal, a cancellation request, and maybe something on that policy that we need to handle through a ticket. So we'll go ahead and create that association as well. Now on these associations, we'll start with the policies to contacts. So these associations can have limits, so you can configure these limits. What these limits allow you to do is, do you want a policy to be able to be associated with many contacts, or should it only be associated to one contact? In some cases, for example, auto policies might have more than one contact, so we'll need to associate it to more than one contact. So we're going to keep many contacts on here. Contacts to policies. Can a contact have many policies? Again, hopefully, I know in the insurance space, it's always bundling policies together. So you might have your auto and your home, or you might have, your auto and your renter's insurance. And so we will also enable many here. And the same, you can go through those limits in each other association that you've created or enabled. And then the last thing on the associations are association labels. Now this is actually a really important step here. A lot of times people skip this step completely. And what oftentimes happens is it becomes very hard to understand associations more contextually in workflows, in automations, in process enhancements. And so what you really need to do here is have a think of, let's say policies to contacts. If there are more than one, contact on that policy, how do we know which contact is maybe the first insured, the second insured, who's the primary one on the policy, who's maybe listed as a family member? So in this case, for these labels, I'm going to go ahead and add a single label here, and we'll just do primary insured, right? And that will just give us a way to associate a policy to a contact with primary insured, and vice versa. And that will give us some context when we're running lists or workflows so that we can pull the according contacts. Let's say we want to run an email campaign when a policy is expiring, right? Well, we don't maybe want to send it to everybody on the policy. We might not want to send it to the entire family. Maybe we want to just send it to the person who's the primary insured, who is paying for the premium on that policy. So we'll go ahead and set that label on the contact, and then you have that context to use in automation. So now that we've gone through this, we'll continue with these options here. Pipelines is something that you can enable. So depending on whether or not you want to, view these policies in a pipeline or not, which takes me to one step, which is the viewing of the policies, viewing of the custom objects that you've created. So once you've created the custom object, you can go under CRM, you can go to the new custom object you've created. Here are policies. When you click on this, you'll see that it shows in a list view. And you also have the option to create a pipeline. So just like you do in deals, you can cycle through these. So we'll go ahead and let's just go ahead and create a policy, create the new custom object that you've created. Let's go ahead and just create one. So in this case, again, required policy number as a primary display property. It will be required. And as you can see here, we have our policy number, and then we have our insurance company here. So these primary display properties and secondary display properties get displayed up here, and that's kind of what I was mentioning before. So in this case, let's just go ahead and create a new policy, and we'll say this is with AAA. We'll create that policy. So here you can see this creates a new policy record with the policy number as the primary display property. We have the insurance company name here, and then again we can associate the object. So maybe you want to associate a contact. Maybe this person is the primary insured, and just skipped through that step. But here you can go ahead and edit association labels, and we'll select primary insured there. So there's the association on that front, and here's the custom object that we've created. And again, going back to the list view, we can also view this in a pipeline. Maybe you want to create this in a pipeline view because the custom object that you're creating will move through different stages. For example, if you're building a home and you have a pipeline built for building a home, you might have the first step as the foundation, and then getting everything else in place. So that's depending on your use case, you might want to enable a pipeline. And here we'll just do something. We'll just name it policy pipeline just to keep it simple here. And again, maybe we'll just do one is policy bound, and then maybe the next one is canceled, right? So we'll just go ahead and leave those stages there, go back to our policies, and again here you can see our two stages. Now this policy that we have, it doesn't actually live on this pipeline yet, so you'll see here, so we can go ahead and edit this policy now, and you'll see the policy pipeline stage listed as an option, and you can go ahead and move it into the stage that you want. And when we go back on here and give this a refresh, and we will see the policy listed on here. Now, when you're creating these custom objects and you're looking at these Kanban board views, you might realize that there's very little data on here. There's only the primary display property. There's not much data. So you might want to customize this a little bit. If you go into the settings page from the pipeline view, you'll be taken to the policies settings, and you can go to pipelines, and here you can customize the policy cards. So let's say I want to display the insurance company on here. I might display the insurance company on here. So again, that kind of runs through a lot of the customization. Again, you can customize the records similarly to how you do for other objects. All of the information on the left hand side of a policy under this about section, you can add new sections, you can customize these properties, you can reorder this, you can even change what's in here, and with the new CRM custom development beta, you can even build React and complete applications right in here that work. So this kind of runs through all of this. Now let's take a quick peek on how this custom object now interacts with different parts of the tool. So let's just take a look at the list tool first. If we go through and create a list, you will now see an option for policies on here. So we can go through and list, and let's say we want to say, insurance policies from, AAA policies, for example. And we can do add filter, we can do policy properties, we can do product type, or we can do insurance company, depending on what you're trying to build. And then here we can do AAA. So this should show that one policy that we have for AAA. So again, it works in the list tool. You can build lists with your custom objects. You can use those lists. You can export them. And then let's take a look in the workflows, because the workflows also gives us this custom capability of using these custom objects directly in the workflow. So when you're creating a workflow, you'll notice at the very bottom on the first step, it'll show that custom object. We'll go ahead and create a new blank workflow, and let's just go ahead and say, when an event occurs, let's say a new policy has been created. Well, hey, I need to send an internal email to, a user and say, hey, new policy bound, and maybe we'll include information about the associated contact, right? Because that's something that we'll need to do. Maybe we want to refer to that. We want to pull specifically, the primary insured contact. So that's again why the labels are so important, is because then we can start to use those labels in automation. And here we can go ahead and put in the information from the contact directly on that email, and put in some information here, maybe about policy number in the body. We can save. So again, this gives us a nice little notification for policies, and new policy created, right? So again, there's a lot of options within the workflows. We've worked with a number of different companies for use cases with the custom objects, and worked on implementing automation with for marketing, sales, and service purposes, as well as operationally. And so there's a lot of options here. So now that we've gone through creating custom objects in HubSpot, you should be pretty familiarized with how to create a custom object, set the primary and secondary display properties, create new properties for that custom object, create the associations between that custom object and default objects in HubSpot, as well as utilizing that custom object throughout HubSpot. If you like this video, please like and drop a comment if you have any questions or are looking for any specific questions about custom objects and how they're used in HubSpot. Feel free to let me know. I'd love to help answer any of your questions. Thanks again.